the only show that enables women to share their own secrets and insights to wellness, one story at a time. And welcome Elaine Blanchette, who's going to guide us through today's story.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Hélène Blanchette, the president of My Jane, and welcome to My Jane, My Story. Our mission is to unite and empower women through community, education, and exploration of cannabis solutions to address our biggest health concerns like sleep, pain, and stress, and also our lifestyle like romance. There is so much overwhelming information out there, and we decided that we needed to come together and share stories by creating My Jane, My Story. This is a place to talk about real life experiences so we can be better and do better by helping one another. Every journey is unique, every path is special, and we are extremely grateful to have our guest here to share with all of us. This is a non judgmental space where every question is necessary to learn and shift our perspective on this plant. Today we are fortunate to have Tina Fanucchi-Frontado, very Italian as a name, with us. She is the CEO and co-founder of KopSun, a company dedicated to health and education. And after hearing her story, you will probably add to this warrior and lobbyist on the, and she's just a wonderful woman that is here to help the fight for the right to medicate with cannabis solutions. So KopSun is providing education and also testing and giving a seal of approval on products. So Tina, thank you so much for being with us today. Let me start by asking you, tell us about your story. Tell us about what brought you here to this specific career of the cannabis industry.
Well, thank you again for this opportunity. Anytime I get a chance to talk about cannabis, I welcome it. I have a 30-year career in philanthropic advising, so cannabis has not always been my focus. My father, about 5 years ago, had suffered a massive heart attack, which left his heart inoperable. So he was actually on hospice following that. And he went from being this extremely healthy man, district governor for Rotary on the fire board. He was one of the pillars of our community, to seriously taking a fistful of pharmaceuticals every day to just get through. And he, as I said, very vibrant man who might have had 50 drinks in his entire life. He was on absolutely at 82 years old, no medications. He did not even take anything over the counter. So he went from that to Xanax, pain medication, sleep medication, all of those that are required for so-called quality of life following a heart attack. And after losing my mother and my brother, I had vowed that he would live out the rest of his life as beautifully as possible. And these pharmaceuticals were ruining the rest of his life. And a friend of mine, business owner in town who I really respected, suggested edibles. And all I had known about cannabis before that was a joint that I might have, that I might take a couple puffs on the weekend and run or clean my house or garden, but didn't know anything else about the medicinal health and wellness.
And that was when that got your father?
5 years ago. So It's not that long ago.
No, but it was the black market then.
Yeah. So I actually had to buy the edibles on a black market, and we had to work out a dosing calendar and regime for him that would work. And what it did was, we got him off the anti-anxiety medication.
Wow.
Supplemented it with cannabis, got him off the sleep medication and supplemented that as well as for his pain. And, he would sit on our front porch and his friends would come over to pay their respects, so to speak. And he'd say, yeah, I'm taking the pot now. And it did not save his life, obviously, but thank the Lord, it made the rest of his life so much better. You know, he was vibrant up until the day he met the Lord, and it was there that began to interest my peak. At the same time, we live up here in the foothills of Carpinteria. A lot of our growers are cut flower farmers switched to cannabis. And so I was really then intrigued and learning about
Cannabis, do you mean that they are growing hemp, or that they're
no,
growing
no,
marijuana?
they were growing medical marijuana. Yeah,
Okay.
actually hemp, there is no growing of hemp yet in Santa Barbara County.
Okay.
Um, because really hemp and the cannabis, the medical cannabis, is not compatible right now. So that turned, at the same time, the city of Carpinteria was trying to outlaw the delivery of medical marijuana. And that just got me going. And I started drafting letters. I would not call myself a lobbyist. I call myself an activist.
Yeah.
And my mother, who had started the local newspaper in town, I had met some of her colleagues. And since she had passed and wasn't my editor anymore, I reached out to Amy Orozco, who was the editor of the paper, and I'd send my copy over to her and she'd fix it up. And we kind of started collaborating with the city. And she said, hey, let's do something here. And then we met Leanne and we formed KopSun.
So
And
KopSun, where does that name come from? It sounds Korean.
oh, I know. Well, my father-in-law was the chief of police of Carpinteria, and my husband was, the kids would call him, hey, KopSun. And it was kind of a derogatory pain spot for him. And I thought, how can we turn this around? So KOPSUN.
Well,
It's a conversation piece for sure.
it is, and
Yeah.
it's a cute name. It's a really good
Thank you.
name.
Thank you. So that was really how it all began, was with my dear old dad.
And then you formed KopSun, that is really dedicated to educating, but also you mentioned that you have 3 farms around you in Santa Barbara. So they grow marijuana. How is this helping the mission of education that you have at KopSun?
Oh, it's been fabulous. I mean, I would say, first of all, anybody that gets an opportunity to tour a licensed compliant cannabis farm, do so, because it's fascinating. What I'd say some of the big takeaways is because Santa Barbara County is we're an ag community, and we have multiple farms here in Carpinteria, and they went from cut flowers to cannabis, and instantly we saw an improvement in our neighborhoods. Our traffic decreased because we no longer needed those big refrigerator trucks to transport all those cut flowers. My mother at one time, I think, counted 60 something trucks across our roads here. So the traffic was significantly decreased. The workers, we have 1,000 cannabis workers in our town of Carpinteria, are now earning a living wage, which is wonderful. So they don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs. They do the closed loop irrigation, so it's wonderful for our water table. And I'd say the biggest benefit is the use of no pesticides. So legally compliant cannabis has to be tested to the parts per billion every batch.
Right.
So they actually use ladybug larvae to control unwanted pests. So living up here, being up here in this community all of my life, to just know that they're now growing the cleanest, most environmentally friendly plant our county has ever seen. Environmentally is a win. Economically, it's a win.
Yeah.
So that's really been a huge plus.
And it's environmentally friendly. I'm French. I always have a hard
Yeah,
time
I
with
love
these
it.
things. And also for the pesticide, but also for the trucks, less trucks, it's less emanation, and it's just much better for the environment overall. And you said for the economy as well, because those workers don't need 2 or 3 jobs now to make a living. So but yet it not everybody agree, I believe, with that in Santa Barbara. How
Well,
is the community embracing this?
yeah. So Santa Barbara is a very wealthy old community. There's a lot of money here, a lot of retired people here. And there's a very small group, but very wealthy group of people that have a visceral reaction to cannabis. So, regardless of the benefits, which we just talked about, they still see in their mind this illicit, dirty industry. And they're putting their money and their time behind running every farmer out of our county. And they do that by appealing every single application. And when you appeal an application, the cost is then passed on to the growers. It's hundreds of thousands of
Oh my
dollars.
gosh.
And it could be appealed and appealed. It could take years to even get through. And what the anti-cannabis group is banking on is that they are just going to wear them down.
So you think they're anti-cannabis because of the lack of education, the old stigma about cannabis? And are they open to sit down and understand the medicinal aspect of it and how it can help the senior communities much more than harm them?
Well, of course, we have reached out to them multiple times,
Yeah.
inviting them to we provide what are called leaf learning classes, where you learn the ABCs about cannabis, the difference between hemp and marijuana, what's the endocannabinoid system, what are cannabinoids, a little bit about what it takes to be a cultivator. They're not interested. It's a movement among themselves, really, and they've told those within this little movement not to speak with us, not to meet with us, because I'm sure once they do, um, minds are changed. Their biggest complaint is odor, which
Odor.
is, yeah, which is ironic because where we live, I've got the polo fields a half a mile from us. And then we have a strawberry farm over to the left. And then all of us up here in La Mirada, we're all on septic tanks. So if it's not the polo fields or the fertilizer at the strawberry farms or the septic tanks, oh,
Which odor do you pick, right?
yeah. So, and we know that even when odor is mitigated, because the technology around odor mitigation is fascinating, that they're still not going to want it in our community. And in all of the greenhouses, because Carpinteria can only grow cannabis in a greenhouse, they were dilapidated because the cut flower industry had really lost its footing. So when you would drive our foothills, you would see dilapidated greenhouse after dilapidated greenhouse.
Whereby
And,
now they are all rebuilt with like the utmost modern.
oh, and they're beautiful. Our property values have skyrocketed. Carpinteria has one of the lowest crime rates in all of California. I mean, it's philanthropically, they truly saved our town from the COVID of the
Wow.
restaurants closing. Yeah, I mean, it's check, check, check. It's really not hard to get behind the
So
benefits of this new industry.
is the municipality actually behind you, come to visit you, discuss? Are they more open? Because obviously it impacts positively their tax, it impacts positively the economy of the town.
Well, and we do a lot of educating there too, particularly where I live, because I'm basically surrounded by farms. I invite all the policymakers, the board of supervisors, the planning commissioners, mayors, anybody within a policy making decision to my neighborhood, to walk the neighborhood, to see exactly what it's like to live around cannabis farmers.
And do they come?
Oh, yes.
They do?
Yeah, I mean that's been part of our coaching to them, is that you can't make decisions, big decisions like this, without taking deep dives, which is going to take a dedication to time, right? So we understand that, this is unlike any other industry they have ever seen. I mean, we as a nation have ever seen, right? This
Right.
plant been demonized for 100 years, strategically for 100 years. We are now taking out of the dark shadows and bringing into the light of legalization. The learning curve is there's a lot to this learning curve. And it's changing, as you know, you're in the industry. I mean, just as far as research around the health, wellness, and medicinal benefits, I mean, new things are coming up constantly. I find it fascinating, just the knowledge that the endocannabinoid system was only discovered 20 something years ago, right?
Yes, it's unbelievable. And since most of the doctors that are older have never actually studied it, that's the reason why they don't necessarily believe it exists, because it wasn't in their books, whereby the doctors that have been over the last 15 years have learned much more about it because of that.
Exactly. I mean, I just think 5 years ago, we didn't even know what CBD was.
That's right.
Right?
That's
We
right.
didn't know how CBD interacted with those CB1 and CB2 receptors, or what it could do. So that's what's really so fascinating too, is the schools of research that
That's right.
are now, right? The UCLA, the UC San Diego, the UC Irvine,
which are getting very much involved lately and are developing a lot of trials
exactly.
and research.
I mean, I really predict 5 years from now that the studies are really going to prove how cannabis cures cancer. And, a lot of the naysayers are going to go, oh, well, wait, I was really never against it.
I think, well, I've learned today that the government has patented the plant. So I guess they know that there's something about it, right?
Right. I mean, it's pretty undeniable. I use some great cannabis face cream, and people are always asking me, what do you use on your face?
Too.
Exactly.
And me too. And I've tried all the creams in the world, from the most expensive to the cheapest. And really, it's the day I started to use the creams that have CBD in it that people said, oh my God, what do you do to your skin? You're glowing.
Exactly.
And
actually, that was how one of our major farms got going. He's a Dutch flower grower, and he's never even tried cannabis to this day, but his mother had some skin cancer, and she was going in for surgery in a week, and he gave her some topical, and she went in to have surgery, and the doctor said the cancer was gone, and he started doing his own research, and he was blown away by
it's phenomenal. Agree. So how is now KopSun? I mean, you live the crisis, the pandemic crisis, like we all do. That must have impacted your business model and changed your business model, because if I'm right, you were actually going to the customers in multiple cities and offering some educational classes. How is that changing now? And are you doing it online?
Well, our following are really 50 to 90-year-olds. Which is the fastest growing group of new cannabis consumers, as you know, and because they're looking to transition away from over-the-counter medication or pharmaceuticals. So in that demographic technology is
Is
not
a challenge.
right, is a challenge. So we offer, as you just mentioned, classes actually throughout the Tri-County. We actually began teaching at our city college, and then we were teaching at a local university. Also going into retirement communities and teaching as well, which we can't do anymore.
No.
So, learning how to pivot to this online platform, particularly for that demographic, has been a challenge, because the other challenge is that we would teach and then we would do field trips to dispensaries. The dispensaries would actually close down for us, because, it can be quite daunting or challenging for somebody who's new to cannabis, A, or B, never been in a dispensary, to know what to look for, know what they want.
Yeah.
And so, closing down and having private tours, which we can't do anymore either. So we are looking for ways to pivot effectively, and we still haven't mastered it completely, but
I think
the world of
the
business.
fact that people needed to learn the technology to be able to operate lately, or even see their children or see their loved ones, they had to learn to use the technology. So that should help over the next few weeks for you, because a lot of people have learned about how to use it.
And since since COVID, what's happened is that spectrum of anxiety for those that have normally been on the lower manageable realm have ticked up to higher, where now they're thinking it's actually a problem, where they've never had to have anxiety medication before. Now they can't sleep. They're always in a kind of a state of worry. And this is where, as you know, CBD is a wonderful way to learn how to manage.
Manage anxiety, yes. Well, manage, a stressful time and monkey brains and anxious thoughts.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't know if we had talked about this previously, but it's not just cannabis one and done, because in our workshops, in our Leaf Learning, we talk about the whole person, right? Because cannabis is not take two and call me in the morning, particularly if you're, let's say it is anxiety. So what other things can you help implement into your daily routine to help minimize that anxiety from not only your CBD ritual, but also, maybe tapping, meditation, yoga, ways to holistically, because what we're learning is that this COVID thing's not going to go away anytime soon. I mean, we were hoping it was going to be a couple months and we were going to get back to, and we know that that's not happening. No. And, using pharmaceuticals, particularly things like Xanax, which are highly, highly addictive.
Yes.
Right. Is not the healthiest way.
No, it's definitely not. So if people want to join a class, learn more about KopSun, is there a class coming soon? Are there classes that are recorded that people can listen to? How do we go about finding out more?
Well, we have a pretty extensive platform. So KopSun, KOPSUN, of course, we have our website that is chock full of information, our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn. We also have a group called Carpinteria Cannabis Business Supporters, which only really deals with local cannabis industry news. So if you kind of wanted to you could also look at that. Twitter. So all the normal platforms, and each platform offers you something different. So,
and for those who are challenged with technology, is there a phone number they can reach you at? So perhaps
I would prefer for them to email me at tina@kopsun.com.
Okay,
and
right.
we can figure out a time to speak. And for those that have questions I can't answer, I go to my bucket of experts as well, because I by no means as an expert. I really think of myself, or we think of KopSun as more of a portal, um, and an opening. I don't know, I don't think we talked about this, but when we first launched, nobody in the cannabis industry was doing any kind of social media advertising. And we purposely said, we purposely thought this out of, the health, wellness, and medicinal aspects of cannabis is really where this industry is going.
Yes.
And anything that is brought into the house, be it health, wellness, medical, is usually brought through the mom or the wife.
That's
So
right. They make most of the decisions.
exactly. So we had to get to the mom and the wife, and which meant that we had to create a paradigm shift in the way in which people thought about the cannabis consumer. So, we invested in some beautiful photography. And I mean, if you look at, any of our platforms, we also have a magazine, Cannabis by the Sea magazine.
Ah, that's great. So
Sorry, yeah, that was another one.
subscribe to the magazine.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
Cannabis by the Sea.
Cannabis, and you'll find that all over our platforms too. That it was really to elevate this cannabis consumer into this beautiful top shelf image, and I feel that we have done that really efficiently and effectively.
Well, thank you for being there in this industry so that you can help demystify and destigmatize the knowledge about the cannabis, because it is a wonderful plant. It doesn't mean that it's a stoner market or people that smoke. It has a lot of different products that are made, and understanding it and getting to know it is a very important thing. So thank you for what you're doing for the industry, and thank you for being with us today. It was really wonderful to have you and to get to know you better, and to get to know KopSun and the great mission and work that you do for the senior community, which is a very important community. Thank you, Tina. It was a pleasure having you.
Have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks for tuning in to My Jane, My Story. If you want to learn more, you can join the My Jane community at myjane.com. Get instant access to our Facebook group, Facebook community, educational resources, and updates on My Jane products and special events. And for personal attention right now, you can also pick up the phone and call 833-MY-JANE2. That's MYJANE2. And speak to your own wellness concierge, because it's time to own your wellness. Be well.